Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan, guys. Hope you guys are well. My name is Liaquat, and we're going through Siyar, Akhlaq Wa Siyar. Okay, so Akhlaq Wa Siyar is a book which is quite interesting, as you guys are aware. Let me know if you guys can hear and see in the comments. And then we'll start, inshallah. Hopefully the sound should be working. So as you can see, I've actually found a new what's it? A new book. Yeah, so hopefully this copy should be much better than the previous one. But yeah, inshallah, we'll have a see of that. So let me know in the comments if you guys can see if it's working for you guys, and then we'll start, inshallah. And does anyone remember exactly where we stopped? Anyone recall? So this is actually the copy that I've got. So I've actually somehow managed to find on the internet someone was uploaded this, so I just, alhamdulillah. Alright, so I think it's from, we finished knowledge, didn't we? Yeah, I think is it in Akhlaq? Anyone remember? Was it in Akhlaq that we reached? Where did we exactly reach? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take a guess. I think it was Akhlaq. I think we reached up to Akhlaq. Right, so Brother Muhammad, he's not here today, I think, or I don't know, might come a bit later. He usually knows where I stopped. Okay, so we're gonna start from here. فصل في الأخلاق والسير. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Akhlaq Wa Siyar. So this is a chapter of character and the way that a person behaves, basically. So ihris ala salamati janibika. So he says, the chapter is ihris, take care, protect, ala salamati janibika, protect yourself, meaning protect your honor, protect like when Arabs say things like janibika, like literally janib means your side, but it's referring to your honor. So your honor is considered to be right next to you. So he says ihris ala, is the lighting okay? Lighting's okay, yeah. You guys can see, you guys can hear. So he says, ihris ala an tusafa bisalamati al-janib. So he says, protect yourself so that you are described as being salamat al-janib. That you are salama, meaning you are untainted, you are unaffected, you are unharmed in your janib, in the thing that's next to your honor. Right, so you should work very hard, you should strive very hard to keep your honor intact, your dignity intact. Tahaffaz again also means to protect yourself. So tahaffaz ala an tusaf biddaha. So the first one can actually mean two things. Ihris ala an tusaf bisalamati janibika can also refer to something that you should be aware of. Ihris ala an tusaf. He's saying protect yourself from being like this. Meaning what? Salamat al janib. In this case, janib means people being in your company. Yeah. So in other words, he's saying try to protect yourself from people being scared of being close to you. Yeah, and I think that's the more correct meaning here. Yeah, so in other words, احرص على أن توصف بسلامة جانبك. Protect yourself. Be very, very careful that people around you are not scared of being close to you. Yeah, so أن توصف بسلامة الجانب. Everyone understand that? So you know, sometimes you might have that person who people are scared to be near, because as soon as you go near them, that person will abuse you, or you know, say really cruel things to you, or will backbite you, or you know puts you in a position which might compromise something in Islam or anything like that. So this is احرص على أن توصف بسلامة الجانب. So in that case, the second meaning that I mentioned is more correct. That protect yourself from being someone that's described as being protected from being next to him, meaning they don't want to come close to you. وتحفظ من أن توصف بالدحاء. And protect yourself from being described as being daha. Yeah, بالدحاء. Daha is from the word dahi. Yeah, dahi. So dahi is like grease. Yeah, literally means like kind of greasy, and it refers to like being in a situation where a person will just kind of like say kind of kind things, but they don't really mean it. فيكثر المتحفظون منك. Otherwise, people who are trying to protect themselves from you will increase in number. حتى ربما أضر ذلك بك. So much so that this might even harm you. وربما قتلك. And this might even kill you. Yeah. So in other words, like protect yourself from situations where people are scared to go near you, and people are like, daha can also mean frightened of you as well, right? Terrified of you, right? Because this will result in you losing friends, people not wanting to be close to you. So what should a person do then? So a person should be a very approachable person. Try to be very approachable. Try to be someone that doesn't kind of like make sarcastic comments. Sometimes you might see someone on social media who makes lots of sarcastic comments, who kind of says things which are very cruel. On the outside, they might sound very funny, but in reality, they're hurting people's feelings. And no one wants to be near them. No one wants to. And the day is going to come when that person themselves will actually feel upset and regret what they've done. Yeah, so it's kind of like giving good advice here for those people who think that, they can say anything they like to anyone. But they don't realize that people are actually actively trying to stay away from. فصل, next subchapter. وطن نفسك على ملاقات المكاره. So he says that the second point is وطن نفسك. He goes, get yourself used to. وطن, it means to get yourself used to. Get yourself used to على ما تكره, upon those things which you dislike. يقل همك إذا أتاك. Yeah, so وطن نفسك على ما تكره يقل همك إذا أتاك. And what will happen? So in other words, a lot of people, they're scared of kind of facing things they hate. So sometimes people don't like cold weather, or people don't like certain types of food, or people don't like certain types of gatherings, or people don't like certain types of new environments, or people don't like meeting people. Right? There could be loads of reasons why people don't like something. So he's saying, get yourself used to these things. Get yourself used to things that you dislike. What will happen if you do that? يَقِلُّ هَمُّكَ إِذَا أَتَاكَ. Your stress will be less when it comes to you. So if a person gets themselves, like someone's scared of swimming, for example, the only way that you're going to learn is you got to jump in the pool. You got to overcome that fear. So by a person overcoming the fears, what will tend to happen is that person will become someone who, when that fear actually does come, when that situation does arise, the person will not stress over it. But if a person does not put themselves into difficult situations, right, does not jump in the deep end, then in life, when that situation does come, they won't be able to bear the stress. وَلَا تَسْتَضِرْ بِتَوْتِينِكَ أَوَّلًا. Right? وَيَعْظُمْ سُرُورَكَ وَلَا تَسْتَضِرُّ. So وَلَا تَسْتَضِرْ بِتَوْتِينِكَ أَوَّلًا وَيَعْظُمُ سُرُورَكَ وَيَتَضَاعَفْ إِذَا أَتَاكَ مَا تُحِبُّ مِمَّا لَمْ تَكُنْ قَدَّرْتَهُ. And also he says لا تستضر, meaning do not do not try to kind of like assume that you will be harmed by jumping in the deep end. So for example, like maybe there's someone out there who knows that, like I know some people who are scared of, meeting people. They're just scared of meeting new people. They hate it, or they're scared of, maybe going out in the rain, or they're scared of, giving da'wah to people, or there could be loads of other things, right? Which is natural, people have it. So he says, first of all, get yourself used to it. And then he goes, secondly, do not tastadir, do not assume that you're going to be harmed by jumping in the deep end. If you kind of like imagine this, that you are going to be harmed by going and giving da'wah to someone, or you're going to be harmed by going and speaking up, the truth, or standing up for people who are oppressed, he goes, then you're not really going to benefit. He says, if you do this, meaning if you make yourself feel that you're not going to be harmed, right, by putting yourself into these kind of conditions, what will happen? وَيَعْظُمْ سُرُورُكَ your surur, your happiness will increase. وَيَتَضَاعَفُ and tada'uf, and will increase, will multiply. إِذَا أَتَاكَ when it comes to you, مَا تُحِبُّ those things that you love, مِمَّا لَمْ تَكُنْ قَدَّرْتَهُ from those things that you never imagined were going to happen. So in other words, what he's saying is that if you get yourself used to difficulties and hardships from day one, what will happen is you're going to become extremely happy when something that you really like happens. You're going to be excited about it. So for instance, like I used to remember things like I was afraid of, sometimes maybe reading an advanced book. I was kind of like really terrified of reading an advanced book, and maybe even like asking my teacher about things I couldn't understand. Some teachers were difficult to approach. So if, for example, like I realized that if I actually jump in the deep end, and if I don't understand anything, I go and ask my teacher, what's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is he'll probably tell me off or something, but then I'll get used to it. But if he is, makes dua for me, or becomes happy and says to me, subhanallah, this is such a good thing that you're doing, this will actually increase my happiness, my pleasure, right? So his advices are very sort of like, important advice for overcoming your fears. So everyone will have fear, but the end of the day is the person who overcomes that initial stage of fear by deliberately putting themselves into situations of fear. He's not saying put yourself into the way of harm. He's not saying harm yourself. He's saying it's just that fear to overcome. Now, there's also, in my copy, وَلَا تَسْتَضِرُّ, it can also be وَلَا تَسْتَضِرَّ بِتَوْتِينِ أَوْلًا. It could be that. So in that case, this is not a new thing. This is just carrying on saying that if you make yourself firm from day one on things that you dislike, then number one, your stress will decrease. Number two, you won't feel the fear of trying to get used to things that you dislike, and so forth. So that could be that. But anyway, khulasa, the summary of this is he's teaching people about the importance of overcoming fear. And I think lots of us as Muslims, especially when we live in like countries where we are minorities, a lot of us have fear of expressing our religion in front of other people, right? We have a lot of fear of that. So this is also good advice for us as well, where you just go for it, just do it. What's the most that's going to happen? And once you do it, it's just like you'll overcome that fear, and that's it. Like when you joined school, you went to a new school or something, and you were scared on the first day, your friends you're going to make and all that. Well, once you get into it, then all your fear goes. Okay, next piece of advice. فصل يأتي الفرج بعد الشدة. So ease comes after difficulty. إذا تكاثرت الهموم سقطت كلها. He says when stress, it becomes a lot. تكاثرت, when there's lots and lots and lots of stress, سقطت كلها, all of the stress will disappear. So what does he mean by this? He means that, look, imagine you have one stress, and that stress is, for example, you're going to go to a new workplace, right? Okay, that's one stress. If you have that stress will probably like really ruin your day, because you're just going to keep thinking about it. But if you have 20 stresses, like one is work, one is family, one is your car, one is the bad weather, one is, some other issues that you have in your life. He says the more like issues that you have in your life, the more things that can aggravate your stress in your life you have. He goes, the more they increase, he goes, a point will come where they all just drop. Because what he sees stress to be is like not something which like imagine like a cartoon, one of those kind of like those like when they pile on top of one another. Yeah, one person and then another person and another person, another person, and let's say they're on a bridge. Eventually, you're going to have a certain number of people that's going to climb on the top, and then eventually the bridge will just fall. So similarly, that's what seems to happen when it comes to stress as well. So the idea is that, look, it doesn't matter what you're going through in life, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have ease. Everything's going to drop. The other meaning he can mean by this is إذا تكاثرت الهموم سقطت كلها. When stress increases, a day will come or a time will come when all that stress will disappear. Yeah, the stress will disappear. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel. They're not going to last forever. Doesn't matter how much stress you have, a time will come when all of them will disappear. To be confident in matters of expressing yourself. Excellent. Yeah, definitely. That's a previous one. Definitely. Okay, next one. Faslun. Al-ghadiru wal-wafiyu. Yeah, so ghadir wal-wafi. So ghadir is from the word ghadar, someone who lets you down, is dishonest. And wafi, someone who fulfills their promises. So ghadir is like the opposite, the person who falls back on their promise. And the wafi is someone who fulfills their promise. He says, Al-ghadiru yafi lil majdud wal-wafiyu yaghduru bil mahdud. So what does he mean by this? So he says, the person who is a traitor, ghadir can mean a traitor as well, right? So the traitor is someone who fulfills the majdud. Yeah, majdud, like someone who finds what they're looking for with someone else. Yeah, so in other words, he's saying a traitor, someone who's a traitor by nature, he will actually fulfill, right, his betrayal. Yeah, someone who betrays will fulfill their betrayal once they find what they're looking for. Yafi bil majdud. Yeah, so like this is one thing you can expect in a person who betrays people. Wal wafiyu yaghduru bil mahdud. Yeah, and the wafi person, the wafi meaning that the person who is someone who fulfills their promises, he actually betrays bil mahdud when something is limited. So it's very sort of like, it's very compressed statement. This is a very like compact statement. What he basically means is, like he's saying, someone who is fulfilling in their promises, it doesn't matter how vast that promise is, how hard he has to work for it, he will fulfill his promise. So he's not restricted to limits. Like if he comes to a point, like imagine someone's walking, they made a promise to you that they're going to help you all throughout the day doing gardening. So let's say, for example, they're helping you, all of a sudden it starts to rain. So he says that the truly honest person will actually help you even if it rains. Meaning that he will betray the limits, he will betray rain in order for you to help you. Does that make sense? So it's like a very sort of like, it sounds very kind of like an what's the word for it? Like a contradictory statement he's saying, because the word yaghdur means to be betrayal, and wafi is the opposite. So people who fulfill their promises, they don't betray. Yeah, and likewise, a ghadir means someone who betrays and is a traitor, and yafi means fulfill. So they're two opposite words, but he's using them very cleverly. Like it's like saying this. Imagine like this. Like you say, a Muslim disbelieves in shaitan, and a kafir believes in shaitan. Does that make sense? So you're playing with words, right? So the words over here, you kind of normally associate kafir with someone who disbelieves in Allah, and a believer, you associate them with someone who believes in Allah, but you can use them in an interchangeable way. So what does the sentence mean then? That the person who by nature betrays, you'll find him fulfilling whatever he's found. So when he finds his own personal like aim and goal, he's gonna leave you. He's gonna fulfill his own desire. And the fulfilling person, the person by nature who fulfills, he says you'll find them, they'll be people who actually betray the limits. What does he mean by limits? It means that he will betray things that limit him. So limitations that he experienced, he will betray that in order to fulfill your promise. Make sense? It's a bit advanced, I mean, in the way he's talking about it. وَالسَّعِيدُ, and the person who is, of felicity, of high, sort of like high status, Sa'id. كُلُّ السَّعِيد فِي دُنْيَاهُ مَنْ لَمْ, in the world. So a person who is of a very high moral status, a Sa'id person, in the world is man lam yaltarruhu zaman, is someone who is not forced by time ila ikhtibar al-ikhwan, to test his friends, test his brothers. Yeah, in other words, what he's saying is that if you have friends, and you probably experience this yourself, maybe in the comments you can put examples of this. Let's say you have friends. If you have to one day test whether your friends are loyal to you, you're not a lucky person. Yeah, you're not a person who is fortunate. You're not a fortunate person. So the true fortunate person, the true person who is in a very advantageous position, a privileged position, is someone who in the world never has to test their friends because of problems they're going through. So let's say you're going through depression, or you're going through some health issues, or you're going through anything else. If you have to test your friends whether they will help you in these situations, you're not a Sa'id, basically. Yeah, so it's a very kind of subtle way of saying that, look, you should always try to be friends with those people who are going to stick up for you. And then you're going to have a stress-free life. And we see this as well. I mean, many of us have, I've seen this myself as well. If you have someone who cares for you a lot, and someone who will stick up for you a lot, anything happens to you, you'll always, in the back of your mind, you can fall on them. Yeah, they're your safety net. And I remember when I was studying in madrasa, when I used to get ill, I used to have amazing friends that used to kind of go to the doctors, so take me to the doctors, even pick me up, even carry me to the doctors, buy medicine, buy me food. I knew that if anything happens to me, even though my family weren't close, because I was abroad, it was like these guys, I could rely upon these guys. Yeah, so it's a very kind of like, through lots of experience, Imam Ibn Hazm has actually sort of like reached this conclusion. Yeah, do you guys agree with me? Is this something that you guys have found in life? And if you can't rely on your friends, then you know you're not having a good life. I mean, you know that you're not experiencing privileged, advantageous lifestyle. Okay, next. He says, فَصَلْ لَا تُفَكِّرْ فِي عَدُوِّكَ. He says, don't keep thinking about your enemy. لا تفكر في من يؤذيك. Do not think about, do not like ponder about the one who harms you, the one who bullies you. In other words, if there's someone who bullies you, don't stress yourself over them. Don't keep thinking about them. فإنك إن كنت مقبلا, because if you approach these thoughts, فهو هالك وسعدك يكفيه. وإن كنت مدبرا فكل أحد يؤذيك. So in other words, إن كنت مقبلا. In other words, if you just carry on with your life, if you approach your life and carry on and just ignore him. Let's translate it as ignore him. Literally, مقبلا means someone who approaches. أقبل يقبل. فهو هالك, then realize this guy, your enemy, is going to die one day. وسعدك يكفيك. And your own like success, سعد, is going to be sufficient for you. Yeah, وَسَعْدُكَ يَكْفِي. وَإِن كُنْتَ مُدْبِرًا, but if you turn away from this advice, right, and you keep thinking about your enemy, what's going to happen? فَكُلُّ أَحَدْ يُؤْذِيكَ. Everyone is going to end up harming you. You're going to fall into a situation where you're going to end up everyone bullying you, right? So he's saying, look, don't stress about it. Get on with your life. Don't think about these things. And this is something that we see as well. A person who just ignores, like we say, ignore what people are saying, ignore these kind of bullies. And unfortunately nowadays online, you get a lot of these in comments. Yeah, people commenting and people saying hurtful things to people. You look like this, or you behave like this, or I hate you, or whatever. These kind of things can hurt people. If you keep focusing on these hurtful words and these people, and you keep like kind of investigating them and checking who they are and who their friends are and what kind of things they write, you're just going to be stressing yourself, and you're going to end up being a victim of not just one bully, but lots of bullies, right? Because this is the way you're approaching it. But if you ignore them, just totally ignore them, right? Block them or whatever, and just carry on with your life, your mentality and your approach that you have is simply going to help you in advancing in your life, and they're just going to be left behind. Yeah, so it's like some very good advice about how to overcome, situations where people are trolling you, bullying you, right? There's no like magical solution. The magical solution lies in you. You are the one that has to get on with your life. Okay, he says, Tuba hani'an liman arafa uyubahu. He says, hani'an. How wonderful is it for that person who recognizes his own faults. Tuba liman alima min uyubi nafsihi akthar mimma ya'lamu an-nas minha. Very good advice this is. He says, how fortunate is that person, Tuba liman alima min uyubi nafsihi, the one who knows his own faults, akthar, more than people know about him. Now, this is a very good advice this is. So you think to yourself, get a piece of paper and write down on that piece of paper all the faults that you have. All the faults that you have when it comes to your spirituality, all the faults that you have in your character, all the faults that you have in the way you behave. Write them all down. Obviously don't show anyone, because then you're exposing yourself. But just when you're alone, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on a piece of paper or something, and just write down, look, you know what, I gossip a lot. You know what, I backbite. You know what, I can't control my gaze. Or you know what, I miss my fajrs, or I delay my fajrs, or I'm very lazy in my acts of worship, or I tend to do this kind of act or this or that. Write them all down. The more you know about yourself than other people, the more lucky you are. That's actually itself a very good status to have. And if people know more about you than yourself, then this is the worst position that you can be in. Because you might have 100 faults and you can only see 5 of them. And other people can see 20 or 30 or 40. Yeah. And that means that in society, you're not going to progress in your spiritual progression. Yeah, because it's like, if the first step to spiritually and morally correcting yourself is you have to recognize where you're making mistakes. It's simply like, if you have one of those buckets and you keep filling it up with water and you don't realize how many holes are in that bucket. You could be blocking 1 hole or 2 holes, but you don't realize there's so many other holes that are allowing the water to escape. So the same thing happens with us as well. All the good things that we try to do, if we have these faults in our life and we're not addressing them, and we're not realizing that we have these faults, and people know more faults about us than we know about ourselves, then this is something to be very, very concerned about. And the practice of if you look in the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, we'll find one of the things that they were very, very well known for was that they were able to spot their own faults. Spotting their own faults, right, was something that they actually wanted feedback from other people, right, so that they could quickly correct themselves. May Allah give us that ability. Okay, aqsam as-sabr ala al-jafa. Right, so this is now having patience on jafa. Jafa means bad, harsh character. So sometimes we kind of face this kind of thing. So he's saying sabr ala al-jafa yanqasimu thalath aqsam. Having sabr on bad character is divided into three types. So he says sabr amman yaqdir alayka wa la taqdir alayhi. So having sabr, like let's say there's a person in your life who is very, very harsh. Might be your parents, might be brother and sister, might be some relative or some friend or some online associate. Having patience with them might be such that they have the ability to be able to treat you harshly, but you can't do anything. Yeah. So it's like you're being victimized by them, but you can't do anything. That's the first type of, and you just have patience. You just don't say anything. You be quiet. You're being in a relationship that you're being abused in, and you be quiet. That's the first type of sabr. Second type of sabr, صبر عمن يقدر عليه ولا يقدر عليك. تقدر عليه. So he says, having sabr upon that person that you can easily change the situation, you can easily fix them, yeah, but they can't do anything to you. So they don't have the ability. It's the opposite. But you just stay silent. So you know that you could just finish it off there and then. You got someone online who's being very cruel to you, harsh to you. You have the ability to block them. You have the ability, but they don't have any ability over you. And you're just patient. You don't respond in any way. This is the second type. The third type was sabrun. And the third type is sabr. Amman la taqdir alayh wa la yaqdir alayk. Is the one where you can't do anything to them, they can't do anything to you. Yeah. La taqdir alayh. Right. So you can't do anything to them, they can't do anything to you. But you're still sabr. But they have, their harsh character has sort of like, affected you. So he says, he breaks down each one of these types of sabr now. Right? So think about this now. In your life, when have you kind of just closed your mouth and you haven't really kind of responded? I.e., you've done sabr in your life. What are the different situations? Maybe you were driving your car and all of a sudden someone just quickly zoomed in and took your car parking space. Right? And you just didn't say anything. You just carried on. Which one of these would it fall under? Or for example, like let's say, you're a teacher, right? And the student has shown some harsh behavior and you had the ability to kick the student out of the class or out of the school. But you didn't do it. You showed patience. Or for example, like you're in a situation where maybe, you've seen something happen in the world. Yeah, someone, maybe it's a country or maybe it's a person that's doing some abuse to someone else. They can't do anything to you, but you can't do anything to them and you just stayed silent. So he says, as for the first type, he says, dhullun wa mahanatun. He goes, a person who has patience on this. If you're in a relationship or you're in some sort of friendship where someone is abusing you and they are much stronger than you and you can't do anything to them, he goes, this is humiliation. That's all it is. وَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْفَضَائِلِ. And this type of sabr is not a virtuous sabr. This is not something which, you're supposed to aspire towards. وَالرَّأْيُ لِمَنْ خَشِيَ مَا هُوَ أَشَدْ مِمَّا يَصْبِرْ عَلَيْهِ. Yeah, وَالرَّأْيُ لِمَنْ خَشِيَ. So he goes, the opinion regarding the one who خَشِيَ مَا هُوَ أَشَدْ, who fears something worse, like maybe someone's in a relationship and they're being abused and they think to themselves, if I say anything, I'm gonna suffer worse consequences. خَشِيَ مَا هُوَ أَشَدْ مِمَّا يَصْبِرْ عَلَيْهِ الْمُتَارَكَ وَالْمُبَاعَدَةِ. Yeah, so this person should just stay away from them. Just do not respond to them, just leave them. That's the best thing you can do in this situation. Yeah, so if you're in a situation of friendship or anything where you're being bullied and they are much stronger than you, then do not respond to them. Like, do not try to fight them or anything, because if you fight them, you might get hurt more. Just stay away from them. Just step away from them, take them out of your life, like block them, whatever. Number 2, he said the second type of sabr, where you have the ability to be able to do something to them, but they can't do anything back to you. Yeah, like I gave you the example of, like you're a teacher. Student has shown you very harsh character. Or you have some, frail parents, elderly parents, and they've shown you extremely bad character and you're stronger than them. Like you're physically stronger than them, you're financially stronger than them. They can't do anything to you, but you clearly can do something to them. So this type of sabr, if you stay silent, if you, remain quiet in this situation, this kind of sabr, is it a good sabr? He says this is fadlun wa birrun. This kind of sabr is actually considered to be virtuous and very rewarding. Wa huwa al-hilm, and this is what we call forbearance. Ala al-haqiqati, in reality. This is the type of forbearance the Quran encourages people to do. Yeah. Wa huwa alladhi yusaf bihi al-fudala, and this is the one which is described as being the one that is, for high status people in the eyes of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ showed this many times to his family, many times to his community, when he had the ability to be able to, harm them, especially when it came to Fatih Makkah, the conquest of Makkah, when the Prophet ﷺ, he was in a position where he could have actually, destroyed them all, but he didn't. He let them off. He forgave them. So him being in that position and suffering so much abuse, but now he's in a position where he is able to, inflict on them what they done to him, and they can't do it. So at this moment, showing sabr is actually virtuous. And if you can think of any examples in the Quran or maybe in life as well, maybe someone's gone through something like this, put in the comments as well. Yeah, where you've been in a situation where maybe it's that first type, where the person that was showing you harsh character was actually someone that was much stronger than you, and you just stayed silent and quiet, yeah, inside, because you couldn't do anything. Or maybe it's the second type, where you were in a position like an employer with an employee, or maybe someone who was, like I gave examples of teacher, etc., where you could have actually harmed them, yeah, but you didn't. You just kind of like just gave, practiced your sabr. Wathalith, he says, the third type, where you actually show silence and you show perseverance, where you can't do anything to them, but they can't do anything to you. So he says the third type divides into two types. إما أن يكون الجفاء ممن لم يقع منه إلا على سبيل الغلط والوهلة. So he goes, either it's the person, the receiving end, the person on the other side. He's either this person who showed harsh character did not do it except accidentally. Yeah, forgetfully, accidentally. Like someone, you're driving your car, and sometimes this happens. Yeah, you're driving your car, and all of a sudden, someone just, presses their brake all of a sudden, and you have to quickly brake. And they didn't do it, deliberately. It was accidental. Yeah, something spilt in the car, and they accidentally had to stop the car. Yeah. وَيَعْلَمُ قُبْحَ مَا أَتَى بِهِ, and the person knows what they done was wrong, how bad it was. وَيَنْدَمْ عَلَيْهِ, and that driver in front of you, he feels regret about what he's done. So he goes, the person behind, فَالصَّبْرْ عَلَيْهِ فَضْلٌ وَفَرْضٌ, having patience with the driver in front is actually something good, right? It's virtuous, and it's actually compulsory in many cases. وَهُوَ حِلْمٌ الْحَقِيقَةِ, this is real forbearance as well. Yeah, because it wasn't their fault. And this happens sometimes with students, sometimes it might happen with students, or it might happen with other people as well. Where you're in a situation where someone accidentally has done something which has really angered you, and it wasn't their fault. Sometimes some people are on medication and they've said something which they didn't mean, right? They really regret later on what they said, right? So having patience in that situation is very rewarding. So Allah gives you reward for this as well. Yeah, you actually have reward for this. Number 2, he goes, وَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ لَا يَدْرِي مِقْدَارَ نَفْسِهِ, as for a person, like let's say the driver in front, who doesn't know his own status, like he doesn't know how much of an impact he has on the community. وَيَظُنُّ أَنَّ لَهَا حَقًّا يَسْتَطِيرُ بِهِ, and he believes that he has right which he can use against other people. فَلَا يَنْدَمْ عَلَى مَا سَلَفَ مِنْهُ, and this person does not feel regret of what he's done in the past. He believes he had the right to do this. Yeah, he has the right to harm people or whatever. فَالصَّبْرْ عَلَيْهِ ذُلٌّ وَالْإِصَابِرُ, then this kind of patience, being patient with this kind of individual, he says, don't do it. This is actually humiliation. You're humiliating yourself. وَإِفْسَادٌ لِلْمَصْبُورِ عَلَيْهِ, and this is going to actually destroy the person who is actually the driver in front. Yeah. So for you, it's like I'm the driver behind. For me, it's humiliation. This driver in front thinks he has the right to park the car anywhere he wants. He can brake anywhere he wants. He can chuck rubbish at the car anywhere he wants, and he doesn't even feel regret for doing this. By you showing patience, he's saying, you are actually humiliating yourself. This is humiliation for you. And the guy himself, you're actually spoiling him. Yeah, you're messing him up. So he said, لِأَنَّهُ يَزِيدُ إِسْتِشْرَاءً, because this person, he just increases in like evil, because he's just going to do this here, and then he's going to see, look, no one's saying anything to me. So he goes, does it somewhere else, and no one says anything to him. He does it somewhere else. وَالْمُقَارَضَ لَهُ, and this is something which is وَالْمُقَارَضَ لَهُ سُخْفٌ. Yeah, and a person, if a person responds with his similar action, like if you say, well, if he can throw rubbish at the car, I'm going to throw rubbish at the car as well. If he can do this, I'm going to do this. Because this is also very wrong as well. You don't respond in this way. So how do you do then? You're not supposed to, you shouldn't be silent, and nor should you respond to him in the same way he done. He goes, وَالصَّوَابِ, he goes, the correct way to respond to him is إِعْلَامُهُ, to publicize to him, yeah, to make him aware بِأَنَّهُ كَانَ مُمْكِنًا أَنْ يَنْتَصِرْ مِنْهُ, to make him know that, look, I could have done something there. I could have done something to you there. وَأَنَّهُ إِنَّمَا تَرَكَ ذَلِكَ, and that he only left doing that. Like, I'm the driver behind. and I say, and I stop him, and I say to him, look, listen, I could have actually done something to you there. He goes, but I didn't. And why did I leave it for? Because istirdalan lahu faqat. Yeah, I didn't do it because I didn't want to humiliate you in front of everyone. Wasiyanatan an muraja'atihi, and also protection from him having to come back. Yeah, to do something else. It becomes a tennis match. In other words, if I do something to you, you might respond and feel humiliated, and then you try to do something back to me, and then I do something to you, and then it just becomes like this kind of like endless tennis match of abuse, verbal abuse and physical abuse. Yeah, no one's gonna get anywhere. وَأَمَّا جَفَاءُ السِّفْلَةِ, as for the harsh like character or traits that really low people have in society, فَلَيْسَ جَزَاؤُهُ, then the reward of this, the way that you should recompense this, is النَّكَالُ وَحْدَهُ, is to use like punishment with them. He's saying, I mean, obviously that's something that not everyone can do, but it's interesting how he's saying it, because in society there are some people who there's no other way to deal with them except to simply just, you got to use force. Yeah, you don't use your kindness, and unfortunately many of us, I think this is a very good advice, because many of us do not know when to stay quiet and be patient, and when to respond and how much to respond. Yeah, so knowing when to be patient, knowing when to have a measured response, and knowing when to respond with brute force, all of these things have its place. Yeah, so like in a battlefield, you're obviously going for war. Having patience in war is makes silly, doesn't make sense. Over there, you have to use brute force against the enemy, right? But if you're in your relatives, for example, your relatives have done something, yeah. In that situation, what are you going to do with your relatives? Are you going to start using force against them? No, you shouldn't, because this is going to ultimately lead to this long, endless sort of like throwing of abuse to one another. And unfortunately, it happens a lot in relatives. One person said something at the last Eid event, the other person responds again, and then they start talking to each other, or they start this, generation sort of like war. So I think it's very good advice for a lot of people also who hear about the concept of sabr in Islam, but take this sabr to mean something which is general in everything. Sabr in everything is good. Burglars come to your house, just do sabr. Or for example, like someone is like charging you extortion rates for something, just do sabr and buy it. No, this type of sabr is a wrong sabr. That's what he's trying to show basically. So just to recap again, he's saying that if you're in a situation where you have the upper hand and someone is showing you harshness, then he says the best thing to do, sabr in that situation would be rewarding. Yeah, unless the people are very low life people like thieves and robbers and people who are just generally have a an evil trait inside of them. He says then with them you have to use you got to use some force. Right, now he's not encouraging people to become violent and use this against others, but he's just saying that sometimes this might be the case. Okay, I will stop there. I think any questions on this? Anybody got any questions? I mean, I personally, actually, let's do one more. I think let's do one more and then we'll call it a day. Okay, next. Faslun min ahammi uyubi mujalasat nas. From the most important defects, faults when sitting with other people. So this section, I think it's a very good section for people becoming more acute and becoming more sort of aware of faults. So for example, like sitting at the computer, what are the faults when you sit at the computer? In other words, what are the things that can actually be bad for you when you sit at the computer? What are the things that can be bad for you when you go on Facebook? What are the things that are going to be bad for you when you sit with your family? So if you can like spot before you even fall into it, that is the best, sort of status that a person can have. When they can spot the faults in something before. So like when sometimes you buy a mobile phone, or you buy a washing machine, or you buy a TV or something, and it comes with a manual, and the manual it says, oh, don't do this with it. People find this problem with it. Sometimes people find this problem with it. So if you know what kind of faults this kind of device can potentially have, that will help you a lot in life from falling into those faults. So this is why I think this section is a very good section. So he says, Man jalas an-nas lam ya'dim hamman yu'lim nafsahu. He goes, whoever sits with other people, anyone, any group of people, he says, he will always feel some sort of a worry that will hurt them. Anyone with anyone. Wa ithman, and a person will receive a sin, yandam alayhi fi ma'adihi, which he will regret in the hereafter. Wa ghaydan, and a person will experience rage and anger, yundiju kabidahu, which will roast his liver. Like, this is an Arabic saying, meaning that it will burn him inside. Like, he will have this sort of like grudge. He will hold grudges. And number 4, وَذُلًّا يُنَكِّسْ himmatahu, and he'll feel this humiliation that will stunt his aspirations. Yeah, in other words, these are 4. He's saying these are 4 like defects that he's found when people sit in gatherings. Yeah, what are the 4 again? Let's say them again. Number 1, stress. Any gathering you sit in, then you're putting yourself at risk of getting stress, and then that stress hurting you later on, whether it's anxiety, in the form of anxiety, whether it's in the form of depression or anything like that. Number 2 is when you sit in gatherings, you are increasing your chances of committing sin, ithman, which you're going to regret on the Day of Judgment. So in other words, if a person stays away from gatherings and secludes themselves, they're less prone to falling into those sins. Does that make sense? Number 3 is ghaydan, meaning rage and anger. Yeah. The more you sit in other people's gatherings, the more things are going to be said in those gatherings that will trigger rage and anger inside of you. Yeah. And then that rage and anger will start to be harbored in your heart. And then it's something which later on, makes you do things which you regret. And number 4, when you go to a gathering, you're putting yourself at risk of humiliation. Yeah. Now, forget a gathering. Just think about like a WhatsApp group. You have a WhatsApp group, or you have like social media. You put a post up. This is like a group, isn't it? When you ever say something in a WhatsApp, join a WhatsApp group, remember these 4 things. He's saying, remember these 4 things you're putting yourself at risk of these 4 things. Unnecessary stress, unnecessary sins, unnecessary anger, and unnecessary humiliation. And how many times has it happened to you in the past where you've been in a conversation in a WhatsApp group, and at the end of it you felt so humiliated, you wish that you hadn't even joined that group? How many times has it been you've been in a gathering, like a WhatsApp group, where you've actually unfortunately fell into sin, whether it's backbiting or gossiping or anything which is contrary to Islamic teachings? How many times have you been in a WhatsApp group where you've actually ended up being extremely angry with someone in that group, what they've said? How many times have you been in a WhatsApp group where it's just kind of unnecessary, you've had unnecessary stress on your mind? Like, if you hadn't been on that WhatsApp group in the day, you could have slept easily, you lost sleep over it. Yeah, think about this. So this advice that Ibn Hazm rahimahullah is giving, I think it's very, very pertinent to the modern era that we live in today as well, because a lot of times we think because we're living in modern era, because we have modern technology, a lot of these sort of old problems that people used to face in life, those are eliminated. No, it's not eliminated. They're still there. It's just that they're repackaged in a different way now. He says, فَمَا الظَّنُّ بَعْدُ بِمَنْ خَالَتَهُمْ وَدَاخَلَهُم. So then, what do you think about that person who actually kind of gets into people, really kind of immerses them into people? So one is just being on a WhatsApp group, but one is where you're extremely active on that WhatsApp group. What do you think the situation of that person is going to be? And you think about it, if there's 20 people in a WhatsApp group, and you're feeling like one of these 4 things, or more than 1/4 of the 4, imagine the people who are engaging in the WhatsApp groups, how much stress they go through. I've spoken to so many people who actually have said they've got more anxiety by going on these groups, social media and these groups, and they've gone on this kind of like what do you call it? They call it a retreat. Is it called like a digital retreat or something? Yeah, where they cut themselves off from all digital social media devices. Yeah, deactivate it and everything for a month or so, and then they kind of what's the word, man? detox. Yeah, detox, isn't it? The word detox. So they have a spiritual detox from social media. Yeah. So if you think about it, the people who are more active on social media, those are the people who are actually suffering from these four things the most. You have to think about it. And I mean, this is obviously not aimed at anyone, but you can just think about the people that you are close to, and you can see the mental state that they go through, because all these things are a mental state, isn't it? Like stress is a mental state, regret over sin is a mental state, and then harboring anger is a mental state, and then feeling humiliated is a mental state. And a lot of these we can save ourselves from simply just by abstaining from these things. And then he says, وَالْعِزَّةُ وَالرَّاحَةُ وَالسُّرُورُ وَالسَّلَامَةُ. He says honor, he says raha, feeling relaxed, surur, happiness, salama, feeling safe, fil infiradi anhum, is always in secluding yourself from them. Yeah, separating yourself from them. Because this is where raha is. Now this does not mean that a person should obviously cut themselves off from society, because as human beings we need to live in communities, groups. وَلَكِنْ اجْعَلْهُمْ كَالنَّارِ. He says, however, treat groups like fire. Like if you have WhatsApp groups, treat it like fire. تَدْفَأُ بِهَا or تَدَفَّأُ بِهَا. You seek warmth with it. وَلَا تُخَالِطْهَا. But don't get too close to it. Yeah, so this is how you should treat groups. So this kind of WhatsApp groups and social media groups, he's saying, treat it like fire basically. It's beneficial, it gives you warmth, it can keep you kind of nice and cozy, but at the same time, just keep your distance. Right? Don't get too close, because once you get too close, you're going to burn yourself. And I think this is the perfect sort of example that he's given of groups that we're with. And just think about it to yourself. Maybe you don't want to put it in the comments, but just think about it to yourself. Do you really need that group? Is that group very necessary? On many occasions, I've deleted all the WhatsApp groups I was on, except for the really essential one, like my work and family, of those, and I'll keep those, but other ones I'll delete. Why? Because it's so people will put you onto a WhatsApp group, and then you're potentially putting yourself into so much mental stress or mental sort of problems. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Yeah, so you can make a judgment for yourself. Okay, we'll stop there. Finish there. Any questions you can put in the comments. Okay, Mal, assalamu alaikum. Are there any other advice for reducing stress from this book? We're going to be going through them, inshallah. Yeah, so the rest of the passages also mention this as well. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I personally like this book. I think it's very, very beneficial, especially when it comes to actually, let me just make a mark here so I know next time that we stopped over here. I think this is very beneficial because it makes us realize the importance of our own faults, yeah, and how we can improve ourselves. And this is think of this book like a manual of how to use like a very expensive like gadget that you bought, like a very expensive laptop or a computer or a mobile phone that you purchased, and you want to use it in the best way possible. What would you do? You'd follow the manual, wouldn't you? You'd read the manual carefully. Okay, how do I use this? How do I apply this? How do I turn this on? How do I do it in the best way possible? So if you want to benefit from it in the best way, in the optimum way, you're going to follow the instructions and guidelines that it came with. So this kind of book and other books that are similar to this, ideally the Quran, obviously, this is something which is a very good book to optimize your spirituality. So if imagine there's 10 people walking down trying to get to London from Birmingham, right? If out of those 10 people, the person who uses the best route, the best directions, drives in the best speed, is going to get to London in the best way possible. And the person who doesn't follow this, they might get there well, they might not get there, they might struggle, you don't know. So this is what's happened to many of us. We're trying to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. We're trying to get close to Allah ta'ala and stay on the path of Jannah. But the problem with a lot of us are just trial and error. So we're trying some things one day, and then unfortunately we're making big mistakes, we're falling into error, and then we're trying to some other things, and then we're falling into error. Sometimes you might listen to a few talks here thinking that listen to talks will get me close, and then we realize that no, I shouldn't have listened to too many talks. I should have read some Quran, or I should have given some charity, I should have done this. This is where we falter. But when we have like a mentor, or when we have a book like this, or when we have like some instruction that someone can help us, like a mentor. Mentor is ideal. If you can have a mentor who, can tell you, okay, you know what are you doing in life? Okay, you need to focus on this, you need to focus on this, you need to do this. That will help a person, reach their destination in a much better way. Yeah, in a much quicker and more effective way as well. Yeah, so that's why these books are very good. So these books, I would say, are not necessarily books that you should study for yourself, as in just like read it and study it. Yeah, take advice from it. Read little bits of it every day, little few lines every day. Think about it, and then like I try to give examples, real life examples. Then you kind of think, oh yeah, in this situation, how would I deal with this? How should I deal with, like today we learned about how should we deal with abusive people towards us? How should I deal with like students or children? I've got children and they're showing me bad character. How should I deal with that? Should I just do sabr? And should I let them do whatever they want? You don't want to kind of tilt the balance in the wrong way. Otherwise, the harms for you or the harms for other people might be more than you can actually bear. Alright guys, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. And inshallah, I will see you. Is the lighting okay with this? I've tried some new lighting here today. I don't know if you guys like this. Microphone seems a bit too close to the camera. Yeah, so the book's, Jazakallah khair. The book's name is Akhlaq Wa Siyar. Akhlaq Wa Siyar. Yeah, it's in Arabic. Akhlaq Wa Siyar. Jazakallah khair mala. Yeah, so I will see you guys next time. And the reason why I know I did kind of like all of a sudden say that we're going to have a live stream today is because I had a free opportunity. But because I've started work again, holidays over. So this is why I don't really have the same times that I can just start a live stream. So this is why I don't know when the next session is going to be before someone asks. I'm not sure when the next session is going to be. Might have another session. This might not have it. Might not have it next week. All depends. Alhamdulillah, Zara. Tawsif, lighting is brighter, yeah? Oh, it looks brighter. Okay. Yeah, so I've tried to do an effect on this. I've tried to just show the reflection on one side. Trying these new different effects. See which one looks better to kind of watch. So audience likes watching different. Ya Allah. Anyway, my 1 hour is up. Jazakumullah khair, and I will see you guys next time, inshallah. Don't forget to watch the videos on my channel. Today I put up Diwan Shafi. Hopefully tomorrow will be fiqh. Friday will be Kanz, and Saturday will be live Quran Q&A, live Q&A, and Sunday is Surah Yasin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.